Captain Picard does not like small animals. Loaxana Troy reacted badly to Deanna's Betazoid kitten, and Ensign Davies likes to break up married teams. What's up with that? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 2, Episode 15, entitled Pen Pals. Story by Hannah Louise Shear, teleplay by Melinda M. Snodgrass, and this was directed by Weinrich Colby. This was April 29th, 1989. Where were you? What's up, Cirroc? How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, everybody, before we get started, please make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel and you hit the bell icon for notifications every time we come out with a new video. If you are listening in, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a nice review there. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us wherever you get podcasts. If you're listening to us wherever you get your podcasts, remember, you can actually watch us, see our faces, and watch our facial expressions so you know when we're making a joke based on our reactions. You can do that by going over to YouTube and searching for the Seventh Rule. Anyway, let's get into this one. Cirroc, I'm dying to know your initial reactions to this because all I remember about this episode is this girl's face. You know, when I saw that girl's face, I was like, oh yeah. And her long Cheeto fingers.
Yeah. I had some enjoyment watching this episode. There were elements of it that I thought were good. I like the idea of the crew being concerned about Wesley's well-being and giving him something to do that challenges him. That is a good way to build inner character kind of relationships and build on that. So I thought that was a good thing. I wasn't the biggest fan of Picard and side of this hollow suite horseback riding. I just felt like it didn't really fit the theme, the narrative. It didn't enhance the story. It just seemed like some extra added scenes that I didn't really necessarily need. It didn't add anything to me.
And it's part of a long tradition it's turning into of Star Trek captains riding horses. Like Kirk, rode horses, or at least he did in Star Trek Generations, the movie. Picard rides horses, and he continues to do so in later episodes, if I remember correctly, of The Next Generation. Captain Pike of Strange New Worlds, we know he likes to ride horses. We know that Captain Sisko was like, get that thing away from me. Not, but there are a number of, I think Janeway even rode a horse in a holodeck, if I remember correctly. Correct us in the comments below, everybody. Let us know every character on Star Trek that was into horseback riding, which ones were not. But did you notice? Sorry, go ahead.
No, if it moved the story along, I would get it, and I didn't need to see him actually, in that space. Also felt like that was an untimely, hollow, sweet kind of vacation when you have these pervasive issues that are being dealt with. You have the planet near explosion and extermination of an entire, basically, civilization. You've got this first contact kind of, prime directive dilemma. It would seem that you would cut your horseback riding kind of thing short.
Well, taking that a step further, you know what I noticed? At one point they said, we've been in this system for 6 weeks. And I realized this is like a vacation for them. They're on this basically detached duty. Starfleet probably just told them, okay, go check out this whatever sector. What was the sector called?
Saint Salkundai Drema.
Selkundi Drema.
Yeah, yeah.
Drema. So they're there for 6 weeks just looking stuff over. They tell Wesley, they're like, all right, we're putting you in charge. But really what they're doing is saying, hey, we got a 6-week vacation. All right, kid, we're really counting on you. We're giving you this big responsibility. But really, they're just Picard. So I was like, is Picard horseback riding for 6 weeks? Is Riker sitting in 10 forward and flirting with girls for 6 weeks? Are they just, and then meanwhile, Wesley and the lower decker ensigns are working on this. They check in on him every once in a while. That must have been their favorite mission ever. They're all just hanging out at the bar, having fun. Riker's like, I don't even know what day it is anymore. Roy's talking about her kittens from back in the day. Whatever. That was
that was the thing that I did like about the horseback riding and the whole equestrian theme was in the dialogue, the way that they addressed the Arabic mythology behind horses. And I thought that was a clever insert for Melinda Snodgrass and Hannah to kind of put this extra layer of some meaning inside of the text. Picard, says something about the south wind and the mythology of the Arabian horse.
Yeah.
And that actually, that piqued my interest. I had to look more into that, and because I hadn't heard that before. And so when I did, the mythology that he's referring to, and there are several of mythological connections to how the Arabian horse came to be. But the one that is being referred to in this particular story is this myth. Another creation of the myth puts the origin of the Arabian horse in the time of Ishmael, the son of Abraham. So it's a biblical reference from Ishmael, son of Abraham. In that story, the angel Gabriel descended from heaven and awakened Ishmael with a wind spout that whirled toward him. The angel Gabriel then commanded the thundercloud to stop scattering dust and rain, and so it gathered itself into a prancing, handsome creature, a horse, that seemed to swallow up the ground. Hence the Bedouins bestowed the drinker of the wind to the first Arabian horse. And so that's the mythology that is being referred to in this episode. Other mythology, Arabic mythology, also has biblical or kind of a religious origins. One of them being between Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, that the exchange of the horse was between them, and that's where the first domesticated Arabian horse comes from. And then the other Arabian horse kind of origin story relates back to Muhammad and him releasing some horses wild, and the ones that came back to him were the ones that became the first line of the Arabian horse. So interesting to know that the horse mythology, the Arabian horse mythology, has these religious origins, specifically the one being referred to here, which is a Old Testament story. And I just thought clever, very clever, and allows me to kind of, as a thinker, to get something to chew on when I watch these kinds of episodes.
And now remember Hannah Louise Shear, she was the writer that did that killed Denise Crosby's character, Tasha Yar. She wrote Skin of Evil with Armis. Melinda M. Snodgrass famously wrote The Measure of a Man. So these two are combining for this one. And I was noticing that Melinda is yet again credited in an episode in which something new is being introduced. Picard being a horse rider and taking the horse riding seriously, because that comes up, in subsequent episodes. And it, just like she did the poker and she did a few other things, that we come to know as iconic Star Trek, iconic Next Generation, iconic Captain Picard, they were originally introduced back in these episodes by her. Now, I don't know if that was her that wrote that part or if that was the story by with Hannah Louise Shear, but one of them did that. And it was funny that we suddenly get introduced. Oh, Picard likes to horse ride. Okay, that's cool. Then he starts doing this horse riding adage. Oh, wow, that's interesting. He's really into it. And then later on in a conference meeting, he starts saying, well, like any good horse rider, this horse rider. And I'm like, all right, don't act like you've been saying like, oh yeah, me, every time we're in meetings, I'm always doing my horse riding metaphors and all that. And I was like, suddenly he's all about horses. It's kind of like if you got that friend that like they just take up skateboarding, and then 3 days later he's like, oh yeah, I got my Tony Hawk Pro skateboard, all this, and you're like, don't act like you've been like skateboarding your whole life. I know you just started on Wednesday, bro. It made me think of that.
Yeah, you're right. It was a little bit over the top. I was waiting for him to do a. But I want to highlight back. He's probably did that during his 6 weeks at 10 Forward.
Yeah.
But I have a question, something to add to what you were saying about the writing combination of Melinda Snodgrass and Hannah Louise Shear. You're right about those things, that they give us these things that last with us, throughout the identity of the character, right? The poker you said, and also this equestrian kind of background that Picard now has, and it will something that you say will surface later. And another thing I want to add to that, which jumped out to me as well, was the tea, Earl Grey, hot. If I'm not mistaken, that's something that they also
yes,
introduced into the lexicon.
That's right. Was that in The Measure of a Man? But there was an episode, and it was Melinda Snodgrass, I believe you're right, that did that. But then the tea came out cold.
Right.
But that was the first time that Picard did his iconic tea, Earl Grey, hot.
Yes. Which he did again in this episode. So she inserts that. This is the second time to be inserting that into an episode, right? So
and both times it was her. Just like both of those episodes, The Measure of a Man and this one, were episodes in which Data is being portrayed as more human, more so than any other episode. The Measure of a Man was fighting for his existence and as an individual. And in this one, he's breaking rules. He's making a friendship. He's saving a girl. He's doing sacrifices. Much more, Data is much more human in those two episodes than he is in any other episode. So clearly, Melinda Snodgrass has a particular shining towards Data. It seems like she finds him to be the fascinating character that she wants to explore.
I think, Melinda has an idea that Data is a great platform to kind of use for telling these stories of humanity that she's very good at telling, right? What are the kind of what are the lines in which we observe humanity? And I think she likes to deal with the lines of where the line is that we should cross or not cross. I think in Measure of a Man, one of the things was, does Data have the right to decide whether he wants to be turned off for this procedure or whatnot, right? And so we were approaching the lines of where he has autonomy over his own self. And in this particular episode, we're approaching the lines of what circumstances call for the breaking of protocol. And I think that was one of the things we're addressing in this episode. Like, we have this prime directive, but under what circumstances would we overrule the prime directive? And where is that line there that we can find? And I think she's very good at trying to find these philosophical debates about gray area. Where is those lines? And also touching on the human emotion. She touched on human emotion with Picard when he saw the kid. There was or when he heard the kid's voice, there was a playing on the emotions there.
Yeah. And I thought the same thing when they were in the observation lounge and they were kind of doing mental gymnastics to try to excuse breaking the prime directive. And it sounded very much like lawyering, which, we know that Melinda is and knows well. And so she writes what she knows. The first one was just flat out a courtroom drama. This one was not a courtroom drama, but there were these arguments being made that were similar. One was that great circular argument, and I think Riker even called it like a vicious circle, where they're like, well, how can she ask for help if she doesn't know the person she's asking help from? And then Data says, well, she knows me, and then I don't remember, Worf said something funny right there that cracked me up.
Yeah, I did. He did.
If I could find it. But either way, oh yeah, so Worf says,
yeah,
she cannot ask for help from someone she does not know. And the Data says, she knows me. And the Riker says, what a perfectly vicious little circle. But what was it? Oh, I can't find it. I'll have to find it later. Oh yeah, that's what it was.
No,
it was right before that. Pulaski says, Data's friend is going to die. That means something. And Worf says, to Data. I was like, you tell him, Worf. Oh, that was too good.
Yeah, I like that.
Great dialogue in this episode.
To Data, I did. I wrote that too. And I also wrote another line that I thought was great during that same exchange. It was delivered by LaForge. And I'm trying to find it, but he said, oh, here it is. They were going about trying to decide in that conference room, what to do about the prime directive and if there was ways to, get around it. Pulaski says, after Worf says, let it be, just who cares about them? We can't violate it. Pulaski says, I find that to be something callous and cowardly or something, right?
Yeah.
And I was waiting to see a close-up on Worf's response to that. They didn't really give me the close-up I wanted.
Yeah, I actually rewound it to see his reaction, but he didn't really do much. But when she says, I find that to be, he just says, we got to follow the prime directive. It wasn't too crazy. And then she's like, I find that to be callous and even a little cowardly. I put in my notes, I was like, wow, calm the fuck down, Pulaski.
Yo, chill out.
Easy.
Seriously, I'm just saying follow the rules. And you're banging on me.
Let's talk this out, man. Let's talk this out.
I was waiting for Worf to give a growl or some kind of something like, what's up with, what's your problem? Like, I don't get you.
Yeah, that was
but they didn't
she
give
took
me
it to 11. She went from 2 to 11, but Picard should have been like, calm down, doctor. Easy. Give yourself a sedative.
And then it was spicy in that conference room because I think Riker said something to the effect of like, no, I think we should consider doing this. And Geordi's like, considered, and rejected.
Oh, that was nasty.
I was like, whoa, this dude dropped the bomb. And because Picard did say speak freely, right? So he did give everybody permission to speak freely. But I thought people took that speak freely way to the next level.
Pulaski's like, good, I could talk shit to Worf. I can, whatever. Geordi's like,
Geordi got what? Yeah, Geordi banged on number one. I thought Riker was going to say something because he says, consider it, considered, and rejected. I was like, wow, that was tough. That was tough. Yeah. So yeah, I did like that scene. I did like them sitting in the conference room. I thought the initial conference room scene when they're talking about Wesley seemed a little forced to me. Just the way it was going around. It was almost like they were talking about it in a comical way, like they were trying to be comical about it. When they first said, I don't know if he can handle it. Well, maybe he can handle it. At first, I thought Wesley was in the room, right? And they're talking about him while he's there. And being like facetious, and when you're talking like somebody's there, like, do you think she can handle the job?
Oh, I don't know. She'll have to try really hard and do a lot of chores.
Yeah, that kind of talk. And I'm waiting to see Wesley in that scene because they delivered the lines the exact way you just said. I don't know. It'd be tough if he could really do it. So that's how you say talk when somebody's in the room and you're trying to do some kind of wordplay with them. So say, well, no, I
Yep.
could do it. What are you talking about? But to talk like that when he's not in the room, it's like I don't, I don't know. I don't get the tone.
It felt a little bit like we were back in the first season for a second there, where they're all
Yeah.
coming together to discuss Wesley and figure that out. And then, they're giving him a teachable moment and all that. But before we get into all that, I did want to point out, Data, a little bit more on the horse talk, on the horse play. When Data goes into the holodeck and, to go see Picard, and he says, excellent, excellent steeds, sir. I just thought, like, he seemed so awkward and so excellent steeds. That sentence has never come out of it. It's never come out of my mouth. I had problems even saying it. And then he goes to pet the horse, and he looked like he just thought he was touching an alien. Like, he was just like, excellent steed. It's like, you're not convincing anybody. I know that you are not comfortable with this beast in front of you. But anyway, I just thought that was like really funny. You could tell Data was angling to ask for something, because when somebody's trying to be like, oh, that's really cool, oh boy, that's they're just trying to get in good and be like, oh, by the way, while we're talking, I had a question. No big deal, I'm mostly here admiring your horse, but also this other thing real quick.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Data had another moment like that to me in this episode that I wrote down in my notes. I liked it when he says, computer search the profile for this, and there's a look when he registers on his face. Oh, it's the girl, the this and that, right? And that's the scene prior to him going to see Captain Picard. Like, because I think he says after he registers this look, he says, "Computer, where's Captain Picard?" And he's like, "He's on deck 4 or deck 3." And he runs out of there, and then they do a close up on Worf, right? Like why did he just run out of here looking for Picard? Now, the reason I'm bringing that scene up is because I felt like Brent Spiner, when he was looking at the computer screen and getting the information that, this is somebody that he's been communicating with, he has to relay this information to Picard. All of that had to register on his facial expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he did a great job in that moment on that close up with that facial expression that he had. And the reason I feel that way is because he started to play it a way a human would play it when they have those reactions.
Yeah.
Right? So a human would see it and say, oh, wow, I've been talking to a girl. It's this person that I've been talking to. They're, this and that, connecting the dots. I have to tell the captain this is a prime directive issue, whatever. So a human would have to react to that in a human way. He caught himself and adjusted and did a kind of robotic twist to the human reaction that you would normally have under those circumstances. And that's where I feel like Brent Spiner's acting with those knowledge that he's a robot and still having to express human-like emotions in a very subtle way, I think is remarkable on his part as far as a performance.
A really good point. Hey, we've got to get to our break very quickly, but everybody listening in right now, just be aware that we also have a second podcast, wherever you find podcasts, called The Seventh Rule 2, in which we review all the new Star Trek series like Lower Decks, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, Discovery, and everything new that's going to be coming out. You can find that, The Seventh Rule and the number 2. Very easy to find. Go please check that out, subscribe to it, and give it a 5-star rating and a nice review. We really appreciate that. Now we're going to take a super quick break, and we will be right back on The Seventh Rule.